Hey guys, welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
Yay, we have such a fun episode today. We have two amazing guests. Of course, those of you who watch the show will remember Lauren, who is now Lauren St. Laurent. And you will also remember Hunter C. Smith. So those of you who have seen season 1 of the Rollout, these two amazing people were both guests, but they are back on to talk about some thoughts that we have about, rumors that have been flying around about certain movies that may or may not get rebooted. And we are here to say, hands off. One of those movies, which brought us all here today,
we're here to say, hands off. We are not taking suggestions from the audience at this time.
Let's have you guys both introduce yourselves.
Yes.
Lauren, let's start with you. Please let us know who you are.
Hey, I'm Laurent of Castle Corsetry. So if you're looking for me on the internet, you're probably going to find Castle Corsetry more than you're going to find my name, but that's okay. We make custom costumes and corsets as well as cosplay items for whatever your fanciful dress-up needs. I've dressed up Genevieve and Hunter. I don't think I've dressed you up, Lindsay. I did dress you up for Dawn Damage.
Yeah.
On Damage, yeah.
So I've dressed all of you guys up.
All of us for Dawn Damage.
I loved my costume for that. I looked amazing. I still have a photo out there.
Yeah, so I've dressed you all, and it's always very fun to put all of you guys in beautiful things.
Yeah.
I love these beautiful things.
No, right? Well, and you've got some, please look at her stuff. It's
Genevieve, Fawn was in my office the other day, and he was like, who is that on the wall? And it was the vampire thing, the first costume I made for you. And I was like, that's Genevieve. He didn't even recognize you because it was from like a gajillion years ago. And I was like, yeah, that's the first costume I ever made, Genevieve. And that's when I met you and your mom and stuff, and it was awesome.
Aww.
And here we are now, like a million years later.
I thought you were going to say a million years older.
It's been a million years.
I feel it.
It feels like a million years, especially since getting through last year. So
yes,
time has no meaning anymore.
Please, let's stop talking about my age. Let's go. Tell us about you.
I was more talking about
Anytime, I'll dive on that grenade. My pleasure. But I will say real quick about Lauren's business is that she also works for guys too. So strap on armor, action, cool stuff. It's not just for the ladies.
It is not. Some bomb ass costumes.
I'm Hunter Smith. I'm an actor, voice actor, stunt performer, and I like to do creatures and lots of makeup stuff. So I'm a fighter. I like to do all kinds of stuff, but action, drama, comedy, throw it all at me. Let's have a good time. But the story is the utmost importance, and that's why this is a very important topic for today.
Well, and one of the reasons we wanted you guys on as guests is because you both have a direct connection to the movie. Lauren, please explain. Let's start with you.
Before we get into it, I don't think we laid out why we are all here. So the internet lost their shit when they figured out that the studios were trying to remake the one, the only, the incomparable Princess Bride.
I made Robin Wright and Cary Elwes, arguably.
Arguably, and so many other people's childhoods, many other people, like parents who have shown their children this movie, and their children shows their children this movie.
Yep.
The internet exploded. I personally exploded.
I was like, don't you?
And so this is why we are all here, to talk about specifically The Princess Bride, but other films that should also just not be remade, and why we feel so strongly about that. Yeah. And so yes, both of our guests have a direct relationship with The Princess Bride in one way or the other, and we would love to hear a little bit. Ooh. Motorcycle. We would love to hear about each of yours different connections. So Lauren, why don't you go first?
Well, okay. So Princess Bride has just since I was a little tiny child has been my favorite movie and is still my favorite movie and has been my entire life. Cary Elwes was one of my first crushes at 6 years old. And it has been a long-standing love that has gone through my entire million-year lifespan. And I love this movie. For me, it's the best movie ever made because it's got the perfect blend of like comedy, action, romance, drama. It's not one genre film. It's every genre film. Like, it is the people pleaser of all movies. Like, anybody sits down to a movie, like, oh, I'm in the mood for an action movie. But I'm in the mood for romance. But like, this movie has it all. It makes everybody in the room happy. It lights up the entire mood of everything. I guess the one genre it doesn't have is, I guess, like horror. But like all the big genres of like a general feel-good movie, it's got them all rolled into one, and it's just the ultimate best movie ever.
Yeah. But now you made the Princess Bride costumes.
I did.
Well-known TV show, right?
A very well-known TV show, but it's kind of a weird story of how it got to that point, because I had made the costumes for myself, and I had worn them to Dragon Con because Cary Elwes was doing like a photo op at Dragon Con, so I like made the Buttercup costume so that I could get my picture with Cary Elwes at Dragon Con. And then like the next year or whatever, I got contacted by Parks and Recreation, and they were saying that they wanted to dress up Amy Poehler and Adam Scott as Westley and Buttercup for their Halloween episode, and they rented my costumes, and they were on Parks and Rec, which was really, really cool. So yeah, when you see the Halloween episode, I believe it was like season 6 or 7. It's like one of the later episodes. And then, those are my costumes.
Yay! And then Hunter, obviously one of the big things about Princess Bride is the epic sword fighting, and you got to do that. Tell people about that.
Well, actually, Lauren can set this up better in at least the start, and we can fill it out because I was asked by Ms. Lauren to come on board for that one. So it was the 25th anniversary of the film, and it was the release of his book, As You Wish. Can you tell a little bit more how you heard about it, Lauren?
Yeah, I was involved in a screening that we hosted at what's that theater called? It's been so long since I've been to a movie theater. I can't even remember the name of the movie theater right now. Jesus Christ.
The first one that comes to mind is Lamalel, but that's not it.
No, it's not it.
We'll circle back if we need.
The Vista?
Yes, Vista.
Okay, the Vista Theater. And so we were hosting a 25th anniversary screening of The Princess Bride, and we managed to get hold of Cary Elwes and got him to come out for a book signing. Because I think he was like about to start the tour that he was going like all over the country for releasing the book and doing these like signings and the press releases and everything for getting the book and the word of the book out. And so since he was in LA, he was available to like just come out to our like humdrum little screening and do like a little mini book signing and a Q&A after the movie. So we tried to make this like as big and bad of an event as possible. And so we wanted to have some sort of pre-show before we started the movie. And so we asked Steve and Hunter to reproduce the famous sword fight in front of the movie screen.
So now that was an interesting challenge because they talk about all the different fencing masters that appear in the fight. However, none of those forms are actually present in the fight. It is a very Olympic style fencing, driving down the line and keeping it very linear. And they're a lot of tippy tappy, or more the Errol Flynn era of you don't need to know exactly what's going on. You just need to know that there's this vibe that's pressing and driving you. And that's actually, again, what lends itself, as we'll get back to, the storytelling of the film on every single point. They're checking their boxes. And each moment is its own moment, but the story, it trumps everything. Yeah. So when we created the choreography, we went into doing much more about what was necessary, what was available, what was realistic. We planned it all out, and then we got there and we realized we have no space unless we do it directly in front of Cary Elwes, in which case we're swiping swords at eye level. Or we break it in half and do one half on one edge of the stage where it's sloped, and then we run across the stage and we do the other half on that side. And so that's what we worked out in the 10 minutes before the show started.
It's so always that way.
Awesome.
It's always 10 minutes before.
It's always
any live thing that I think you, me, and Hunter, that you, Hunter, Linsay, and I have ever done changes literally 10 minutes before because we get to the space and we're like, this is not at all how they described it.
Oh, also, we're going to throw hay down 10 minutes before we're supposed to start fighting. Okay, go.
Or gravel, or
gravel, or
whatever,
dust, or somebody
But-
gets a grand idea of not having a hazer and instead wants to throw dust in the air.
Exactly. But that was the most awesome thing, was performing that fight for him and then having him come up on stage after and asking us to come back up. And it was like, you want us? All right.
He was really gracious, and he
Politician.
seemed to be like truly wowed by y'all's performance. So it was a good day. That was a lovely day.
Yeah.
And I got to, be Inigo Montoya. And
There you go.
as much as I enjoyed Westley, I was like, I'm not blonde hair, blue eyes, and I'm not that hero, but I'm happy to be. And that was the other, well, we'll get to it, but they're characters that start out as villains. When you meet them, they become the heroes that you love. And it's another thing of going, okay, there's not bad guys and good guys. There's people who make decisions and get by, and then they go after what they want, which is generally love and acceptance.
Or, exactly. Or revenge, or, it wasn't even really revenge. But yeah, so obviously, as we can see, we are all fans. We are all passionately connected to this film. Lauren's already, kind of given a broad outline of why it's such an amazing film that is, accessible to so many people, from kids to adults. Why do we not want to have this remade? Let's just dive into the dirty, nitty gritty of this. Like, what about it?
Just don't mess with perfect. It's perfect.
But you gotta pick it out. Why? Pick it out. Why? Like start a realm. I mean, if you start with, for me, it's like great beginnings. So there's we know right now that we are overloaded all the time, and that we have to be hit hard in the first 90 seconds, or else we don't care as a culture. And that is not the case. Then we got to lead in, we got to set up, but it was a familiar setup that both we can appreciate as a kid or as an adult. I don't want to go to school.
Yeah.
Whether I'm sick or I don't want to go, I'm calling in sick today. Here's my moment. I'm safe. I'm good. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to be sick, you're going to be sick. Now we're calling over grandpa with the book. And it's like, oh, fuck, man, I don't want to play video games. I want to do anything else. And we can connect immediately with that. Just let me be. Just let me get away and let me have my day. And it leads us, lures us, and eases us down into the story, into the action, almost unwillingly as we're connecting with our main character. But if we're not thrown into action immediately now, we're like, what's happening? Why, what's going on? So our mindset as a culture has changed. Our pacing and our storytelling tempo has changed. And those universal constants are more thinly spread than they ever used to be.
Well, I also love that, like, even not, outside of the story, within the story, it's like, it's the whole crux of it is rediscovering our love of reading, rediscovering our love of the ability to use our imaginations to create this world that we can't necessarily get from other forms of media. It's like, yes, we are using a film to represent this book, but it's like, at the crux of it, it's like, remember where stories started. They started in books. And I always loved that. Yeah. Lauren, what about you?
I mean, yeah, and we see that even in Princess Bride, which was made in 1987. We see that the kid wants to play video games. Like, obviously, if this movie was remade now, it would be even more so, like the kid being addicted to screens or iPads or their phone or video games.
I've got an Oculus Quest right here. Let's go.
Whatever else they're addicted to. They don't, like, I mean, I don't know a whole lot of kids that still read books these days, and it's real sad because books are magical. And so I think one of the main points as to why this movie can't be remade is that part of the story. Because, like, I don't know, I guess, like, the grandpa could still suck him back into loving books, or like introducing him to a love of books. But, like, I just feel like kids these days wouldn't understand the magic of, like, the imagination of books, because, like, those of us who who grew up reading and like using our own imaginations to build these characters and these worlds, like, I just don't think kids are as creative these days.
No.
They're handed all the information, and they're not given the opportunity to make it themselves, I guess.
I think kids are encouraged to be creative in a different way. And that also just creates a disconnect between, reading actual books. I mean, if a kid wants to read a book nowadays, they're not going to pick up a book. Normally, they're going to pick up their, their iPad or a Kindle or, their iPhone and go into, an app and read it, on a screen. But yeah, back before there was the internet, there's a lot of things that we personally had to divert ourselves with as children. Otherwise, it was just us sitting in our bedroom thinking about all the bull crap that we had to go through at school, if you're dealing with, bullies or whatever, at school, and then you're just sitting there alone in your room. So you
sitting on our landlines talking to our friends, and then our
landlines
are
I
yelling.
don't know what y'all were doing. I was video gaming from the time I was 4. I mean,
you have your landlines, your Tamagotchi. You can write in your diary, watch TV.
Watch TV in real time, and if you miss the
real time,
episode, you're SOL unless it becomes syndicated.
Yes. Unless you're
on
your VHR or VHS, VHS,
or play games on like PC or on your Nintendo. But if you're on PC, you're playing that shit in MS DOS. So
yeah.
Now, the only experience I have had playing with very young children recently has been my niece. Now, I'd love to hear what y'all's experience is, because in the past, I felt like, yes, we were reliving the tales, or at least reliving the characters of those stories that we would reinvent, retell, whatever. But it almost seems like they're just literally replaying the movie over and over again. And it doesn't evolve past that. And it's like they watched it a million times on repeat, and now they're just wanting to act it out in repeat.
Memorized.
You be so-and-so, you be so-and-so, I'll be the princess, this is the set, but we're going to do this. And it's like, is this in the movie? Yeah, you're supposed to do this. I don't like hearing you're supposed to do.
Yes.
That's the thing about playing that I don't like, that I hear too often now, is this control element of, no, that's not the way it goes.
Right.
And it's like, I have the freedom to choose what I want to do.
I was a teacher for 6 years and had to have this conversation because this was pre-episode 7, 8, 9. But this little Tom girl that I absolutely loved her to death, and she was a huge Star Wars fan, and like she was on the playground trying to be a Jedi, and like one of the little boys was like, "You can't be a Jedi." And she was like, "Why not?" And he's like, "There's no girl Jedis." And I was just like, "Okay, we're going to shut this down right now." Because again, you're like supposed to. It's like, well, we've never seen that, so it can't happen.
Right. Going back to supposed to and the Princess Bride, you are actually probably not getting the full book story at all. You're getting the story from the grandpa, through the filter of the grandpa.
Right.
And I think that in itself is ingenious, because there are just things that happen and the way characters say certain things, especially it's Magical Max, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Especially Magical Max.
Miracle Max.
Miracle
Billy
Max. That's
Crystal.
it. Yeah, especially Billy Crystal's character. You just know that like the grandpa is just like inserting like his version of the story in there. And obviously the real Princess Bride doesn't end like the movie ends. So you are also kind of wondering, like, did the grandpa change the ending, or was that just like for the movie? You just have to wonder, but you're seeing it through the filter of the grandpa. But then also some of this stuff, you're also supposed to imagine that you're seeing it through the filter of the child as well, because then you have the cutaways and like from where they're going to kiss and the child's like record scratch. Nope, that should not happen. So there is a lot of input that comes with the main characters that you get in the beginning of the film. And so I think that alone is just genius, Yeah.
They're breaking that fourth wall way before Deadpool.
I was about to say, and did any of you guys see Once Upon a Deadpool?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, where they did a whole Princess Bride thing, and it was awesome.
Freaking great.
So,
Well, it's also, I mean, it's kind of along the lines of like, because, Never Ending Story kind of, it was kind of the same era as that. And it was another one of those where it's like the power of books, you reading stories, but you also are kind of controlling the stories, because it's like everyone who reads a book is going to interpret it differently, and, and the power of the imagination and everything.
Well,
All the
but I
more
find that
reason-
this difference is in having the narrator, in having the grandfather narrating. He's almost pitching the benefit of stories, not necessarily books. And he's like, however you get it, but he's like, this is a good story. He's like, all these things you're doing, they're distracting you, they're filling you with different intentions and mindsets. He's like, but this is a love story. This is a story about people going after what their true heart desires.
Yeah.
That's why this is a good story, because people want something, they're honoring someone, they're respecting someone, or they're saving someone. And those are the stories that we need to lead. Those are the ones that, like, whatever affects you, but find the reality in your fantasy.
Right.
Truth.
driving back to the concept of why The Princess Bride should not be remade, and the absolute like batshit craziness that the internet went through as far as like, do not touch my Princess Bride. And I completely agree with them. Is also this story, if you, and this is our shameless plug for today, we actually have a free 30-day Audible trial if you click the link in the description. And the book, As You Wish, which was written by Cary Elwes, is on Audible, so you can read that. But it's also about the making of the movie and Cary's experience from, being cast in the movie, to the table read, to all the stuff that he had to do, like to train for the sword fighting. And then it goes on, and it's great. And there is also asides from, the producer, the director, Mandy Patinkin. It's really, really good. Also asides from Robin Wright.
The lovely thing about the book is that also on the audiobook is that Cary got all the other performers to read their own input in the
That's so
audio.
great.
That is excellent.
So,
That is
like,
excellent.
So Mandy Patinkin reading in his own part, and like you get to hear it from their own voice, which is really lovely in the audiobook version over like the physical book copy, both of which are amazing because you get the different like voices. But the audiobook is really awesome.
Right. So we have that free 30-day trial for you to click in the description. But my point when bringing up the book is not only the shameless plug, but this story about how this movie almost did not get made, and how it had been shelved for the longest time.
Partly because they could the production company couldn't decide what genre to market it.
Right.
And that's the magic of the movie, is that it has no genre.
Yes.
Right. People point to Game of Thrones, like to Lauren's point, people point to Game of Thrones as fantasy for everyone, and it's the first of its kind. It's like, no, Princess Bride is fantasy for everyone, and that is arguably the first of its kind. You know, like you can point to that movie and be like, if you don't like fantasy, I promise you will find something to like in this movie.
Also, watching Game of Thrones, at least I hope they're not watching Game of Thrones. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, I mean, children.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that like,
Children
this is
can watch
that,
Princess Bride. Yeah.
It's immediately accessible to all ages.
Yes.
Because either you're the main characters living in your adulthood, either you're the older characters taking care and sharing those stories with the new generation, or the new generation doesn't want to hear shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, fine.
Right.
I'll deal with.
And Lauren, you brought up the characters, them coming and reprising their roles in the audiobook. And that's because that's one of the things about this movie is like the casting was there is no weak character in this story. And every character has an iconic moment. I mean, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. And then you have Matt. He's only partially dead. It's like there's so many quotable moments from so many of the different characters. And Henri the Giant, do you want a peanut? It's like you can they all have their moments, and everyone can find a character that they just really connect with.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts from Cary talking about how Mandy Patinkin was originally up for the Westley. And he's like, no, I want fucking Inigo. That is the character that I want to tell that story.
Mhm.
Well, the other nice thing about the book, the Cary's book as well, is that because this movie was made in 1987 and it was on such a kind of a tight budget, they don't have there's not a lot of like behind the scenes like special features or anything on those Blu-ray releases. This book is basically all of the behind the scenes that you would get on the modern Blu-ray, but it's in
And
book form. So you get all those stories, and also you get some of like the cast's stories about Andre the Giant, because obviously he's not with us anymore, and so there's like a lot of the stories about him and his contribution to the set and the camaraderie of the cast members and how like close they were as friends and family, and it's just such a sweet story. And listening to about how much Andre the Giant would drink every night was just nuts.
Right. So like here's my question for you guys. Nowadays, if The Princess Bride were to be remade, hopefully that is shelved forever. Studios nowadays, or the studio that would be making the remake of Princess Bride, would basically have the gamut. They'd be like kids in a candy store with the budget, with the access to casting. They'd have everything that they would need to, just go all out and make it like this huge, crazy blockbuster Marvel style film.
Willy Wonka.
Lots of CGI.
Willy Wonka. Oh yeah.
Or Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gene Wilder will always be my Willy Wonka. I'm sorry. Just gonna put that out.
Well, but again, it's the reality that those movies had about them that made the fantastic part of it so creepy, so amazing, so real. Like you take me into a Wonderland and you go, all right, they're all bright colors, nothing you're ever gonna see that's on a normal basis, and it's like, okay, cool, fantasy, got it. But like, not this is me just stepping into fantasy, and I think that's what those old movies had that they continually lose now, is that they want to throw you into a magical world.
The reason why Princess Bride holds up so well, even having been made in 1987, is that there isn't CG in it. It's not bad CG. It's not bad special effects. These are all practical effects. That was like an actual stunt performer in a fucking rat suit in the RUS team. Like, it's all practically done, and that's why it looks so good on camera, because it comes out of the film and it looks like the human eye would see it. I feel like if they made Princess Bride today, it would be like 95% CG.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
They would also have like 90 rats instead of just the one.
Oh yeah,
like
and then
swarm.
They would probably
they'd
also fire pit explosions.
Through
too,
the woods. It'd be like Indiana Jones 4.
They would cast like a big dude to play Fezzik, but then they would blow him up CG wise, and then they would cast like probably a normal sized dude for Vizzini and just shrink him down. Like, all of this stuff is like nightmare fuel for me.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love this line of thinking.
It would all be CG and it would all be terrible.
So the Inigo and Westley fight would be like 10 minutes long.
So it'd be 10 minutes, there'd be jump cuts everywhere all over the place.
Yeah.
There would be no emphasis on I would rather see the tippy inconsequential hits in a wide frame with fluid motion showing me how these two fighters move.
Yes.
It gives me a clue to how good they are. They're so good that they're going to need to draw 15 hits to pull someone off balance before they get their one.
Right.
Versus, I'm going to knock your blade away and pummel strike you in the face. We're going to jump cut you, slam it against the wall, and then ducking as a blade comes in and cuts the wall because I couldn't stop my sword after you evacuated the space from chopping into the wall.
See, my thoughts on what it would look like is the Legolas fight scene in the third Hobbit film.
Parkour.
Yeah. But like, Hunter,
Both
you can speak to this, especially since we are talking about the fight scene. What to you makes that fight scene so good? Like, it still holds up today, and we watch it and we're like, and we know that it's not the best choreography, but we're like, I love this.
Yes.
The best part of the fight, I would say, start to end, there's so many good choices in it, the build in, the lead in, etc. Person A wants to go get somebody. Person B wants to fight that person. I don't want to fight you. You're not my problem. You're not my issue. My issue's over there. no, but I really want to fight you. Well, I don't want to do this, but it would be dishonorable for me not to, because I respect you as a person, and because you've asked me for it, I will grant you this, and I will decide that, yes, I want to fight you. Now, as gentlemen, we engage. And then based on that, he still doesn't need to kill him, want to kill him. So he defends against him, and he receives this offering. He's like, you're pretty good. Like, yeah, like, wow, I honor you as a person and a fighter. He's like, but whether it's the ego, whether it's the enjoyment, or just having that person that you can finally flow with, finally reign against, he goes, yeah, but check this out. Boom, now I'm, okay, so you got back on me. Now I'm been treating, I've been handicapped this whole time. I'm actually this good. Yeah. That's really impressive. But guess what? So fucking am I.
I love that scene because it's a like you brought up earlier, Hunter, they're telling a story. Like, yes, it's about the fighting. They're two very skilled swordsmen, but we learned so much about these characters in that fight. We learn, oh my gosh, Inigo's, trying to defend the honor of his family. He's trying to find out what happened to his dad. Wesley's got his, it's like they're having a conversation. It's not just flash, bang, flash, bang. Like that's some of the most witty banter and dialogue is during that fight. And it's just like, you take that away and just make it, essentially Mortal Kombat, where it's just cut.
And that's what they want. Like, neither of them really wants to kill the other person. The other one wants to prove how hard they've worked and how long they've trained. And again, going back to the fact that the villains in this piece become the heroes, it's like Wesley learned chivalry, honor, etiquette, and sword fighting from the dread pirate Roberts, who's the whatever. It's like, okay, but then the prince, the tracker, the hunter, is a dick and is like mean to everybody. It's like, great, you have skills, but we hate you because of what you do with them. It's like these people struggled, survived, and they're still going after, and they're still nice to everyone around them. That's a hero. But yeah, the way that the story shifts, and there's not this effort to get past it. There's not like, the fight is the story. The fight is the thing that changes the characters and makes them grow into becoming more aware of their circumstances, aware of their people and the people around them. And then they're changed by that fight after it. That fight has merit because the story doesn't continue in the same vein without it. You can't just throw me into an altercation. I do it and then I go back to what I was doing. Otherwise, what was the purpose?
I think the other thing too that really stands out about Princess Bride's like fight scene in terms of in the conversation of it being remade today is that like when it was made in 1987, I know Hunter already mentioned like the wide shots, but also like how both Cary and Mandy Patinkin trained so long for this fight sequence, and they did it. They trained so that they could do it start to finish. Yes. And like you wouldn't do that now. Like it would be like, oh, we're gonna shoot this section of the fight today, and then we're going to shoot this section of the fight tomorrow, and like it would be broken up. But when they were filming the scene, they did the whole fight over and over again, so they were able to get these long, lovely cuts where you can actually see that these two actors really know what they're doing in terms of this choreography and this particular scene. And it's just that kind of dedication and training we don't see anymore on films, just because of those quick jump cuts and because of all the stupid CG and how things are broken
actors.
up.
I mean, we love stunt actors, of course.
But the equivalent is The Witcher. Like Henry Cavill did train forever and ever and ever, and they did do one solid shot for the Witcher Renfrey goon fight, but they did it with half swords and they CGI'd the full swords on at the end. So it's like, yes, they're still doing the full fight in one shot, and he trained like crazy, so props to him for that, but they still use CGI to fix it in post.
They fixed a ton in that. And then again, how many awesome fights were there after that first episode? It's like, So it's what you work on and what you set up. Now it's like you take John Wick. All right, we've decided that we're going to make these as awesome as they can be. However, John Wick takes moments of action and strings that story together through. Like, we're going to make this real simple. But Keanu did the work. And you can tell just how good he is by how he loads a shotgun. And if you can tell by something as simple as that how good their skills are, that tells you about the work put in. You watch
not even just Keanu, but the whole team from John Wick. Like everything. Oh my gosh, they're all amazing.
Well, my brother.
For sure. I was just giving love to an actor who stepped up.
Right. Well, I was going to say, my brother worked on John Wick. He was one of the stunt performers and stunt coordinator or stunt riggers for John Wick. And, one of the things that they said is, one, it was directed by stunt people for, stunt performers. And he's like, they literally just said, we're going to have you guys just train and train and train and train and train and train. We're not going to choreograph. We're just going to train and go. So it's like, and Keanu has essentially been training since The Matrix, because that's when he met these guys, because it's a scene from The Matrix. So like since The Matrix, he's like, this is awesome. So we're talking 20 years.
Right. He became a martial artist.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
So to that point, I mean, John Wick, they went into the movie knowing that it was an action movie. It was all going to be centered around making amazing action, and then the story is going to follow through.
Right.
And that is how they were able to make a nice, cohesive story, is that they're like, this is the point of the film. Let's make a story that is going to actually fit the actual point of the film. Princess Bride, when you think about it, when you think about the fight scenes, there's two main ones. There's two major ones. It is actually very sparing when it comes to the action.
Yeah.
And that alone is very, but it is one of the, like, those are the two things that would actually pop into mind first for me, other than your garbage, the dream sequence up. But those are the two things. When I think of Princess Bride, I think of that first fight scene first, and then the second fight scene.
Yeah, Inigo and
and yet they're so, like, they are just so, like, they're two small moments, and they're very contained within the story. And yet they service the entire plot so well. I can't imagine them being able to do the same thing, recreate that lightning in a bottle again in a modern day film. They couldn't do it because I think that they would add in tons of action scenes on top of it. Like, it would be nothing but sword fight scenes, and like I said, the dreaded, like, if they were having the ROUSs where they'd be like not fighting one, they'd be like running from an entire swarm, going through a CGI fire,
and then at the end they'd make a rat king, and then they'd be a huge rat of an extraordinary size rat king.
The boss rat, the mecha rat.
That episode of Grimm where they all summon up together.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It would
Right.
be a mess. It would be a mess without direction, without purpose.
Let's take those two fights though real quick. It's like, one is a test of finesse and skill, one is a test of strength and smarts, and one is a test of straight smarts, of experience and worldliness. And it's like, great, we're forming our conflicts based on making a well-rounded hero, making a well-rounded person. It's like, now that fight, that basic physical struggle becomes something that's both intellectual, spiritual, and emotional. He continues to struggle against really shitty odds, but also, again, with the no genre specification, they turn that second fight against Andre Fezzik into comedy.
Yeah.
And we can live through those moments of him figuring it out based on the joy of this slowness and speed.
Well, one thing I love about like the Inigo and Six Figure Man fight is it's like he is fighting from pure passion and love and emotion. And like, he's done, he's beaten, and he's just like, no. And he just keeps coming back, and he just keeps coming back. He's like, this is for my father. And just, you see that in his performance and his, his expression. I mean, obviously Mandy Patinkin's a brilliant actor. But like, you just viscerally connect with this fact. Like, he cannot lose because he's got all of this emotional baggage that he is fighting for. And I just like, that's such an impactful scene for me. And he just keeps saying the one phrase over and over and over,
Well, in that struggle, he's obviously outmatched and losing, but he's attacking from rage, anger, and frustration. Fuck you. I hate you. When it becomes about his father's honor,
yes,
that turns him into a more powerful character that allows him to not make bigger attacks. And all of a sudden he's deflect, stab.
right.
As long as I keep it small, as long as I keep it true, as long as I stay right to the heart of what do I need to do, not die and hurt you. It becomes a different game. His mindset, his heart changes, and the tactics change.
That's
which
really
again Now it's a fight based on skill, wit, and desire, not just what's a cool move.
Oh, another thing onto. Oh, go ahead. Finish.
No, I hate hearing. Show me what cool move you can do with the sword. Not die. I cannot die cleverly. Continue.
Another thing on Genevieve's point in terms of like how this movie would be made now, and like talking about the how our the newer generations are taking on their media, and how we were talking about like with technology and the internet, lower attention spans, and it's now more action on these kinds of movies. You can really tell the difference on that kind of thing with if you look at Star Trek, because Star Trek from 20 years ago was very character driven and very like emotional, and very like you would learn and grow with these characters, and you would see their progression as characters, and you would see them become better people or aliens or whatever the hell they are. But now if you're watching Star Trek Discovery, it is just like action sequence to action sequence. I don't even know any of the bridge characters' names because they don't go into any character development on any of them. I don't know anybody's name on Star Trek Discovery, and we're in season 3.
Right.
It used to be a soap opera in space. Now it is a action show.
Right.
Now everybody in Starfleet knows Kung Fu. Like, what the fuck? But whatever. That's
that goes back to the other thing I was going to talk about. It's like,
that's a side note. But I'm just saying that you can see the difference in what is being demanded out of our media by, I guess, the masses in Star Trek Discovery, because Discovery is very popular. I don't like Discovery, but that's because I'm a Star Trek fan.
Right. Well, Lauren, you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely. That is probably the best one. I mean, it wasn't exactly remade. I would say that the movies like Star Trek, 2009 was more of a reboot rather than like a remake. But again, even with Star Trek 2009, so much more action. It's not a bad film, but it really doesn't it is Star Trek flavored. It is not 100% Star Trek. I like the JJ verse movies more than I like the current shows. Star Trek Discovery and Picard are there's no character development for any of the new characters we're talking about. If you took all of the things about JJ Abrams films that are, the more modern take, and then you just spun it out of control, then you get Discovery, where it's not even Star Trek flavored anymore. It is a Star Trek veneer.
It's just IP. I mean, and that's the thing with productions these days is those of us who work in the industry, like all we're hearing is IP. We only want to make stuff that comes with IP. And it's like, cool. We just, like you just said, Lauren, we just slap the Star Trek label on there or slap the Star Wars logo on there and we've got a show. And people will watch it because of the label. Everything else is just, side note.
Oh my God, Lauren.
I feel like the production companies would do that with Princess Bride. Like whoever would get those film rights would just be like, I don't care how good the movie is as long as it makes money. That's like all they're gonna. Yep.
There's a formula now. Regardless of how much money they get, they know that if I stick to the formula, I'll make at least 15 to 25% more. If I stick with the formula and the IP, all right, 25 to 50% more versus, well, let's work on the story. Like the fact that the whole project would be greenlit before a story or a script was done. Yeah, that's the issue we live in that world these days.
God. I just had
that sounds so great. Let's do it next week. Let's go.
Well, I just had the worst image of Hot Topic making their own line of like new movie remake Princess Bride stuff. And they'd have Princess Bride, the book purse, like the crossbody book purse. And they would have the Princess Bride lunch box, like the tin lunch box thing.
They'd have the shitty Leg Avenue made in China Buttercup dress.
Yes, but it would be more a T-length or like the 40s, 50s style that they just remake every single time because a Star Wars dress can't be anything if it's not in that weird 40s, 50s.
Right. It's like as much as we get, all, and everyone's like, okay, it's the film equivalent of clickbait. It's like, we know action sells. It's going to bring people in. Look at all the Marvel films. But it's like, we've got all the Marvel films, but WandaVision was the #1 show on Disney Plus ever. And there's no action until episode 6. I don't even know.
Like the
It was
last
all
two
about
or
the
something.
story and the character. So it's like, it does work when you take a chance. But I think, like Hunter, to your point, people have forgotten about the fundamentals of filmmaking, which is story and character. And it's just like, we're just going to throw flashy CGI. And now we've got 9 Fast and the Furious films.
Oh God,
I
yeah.
don't even know what they're about. There's cars,
You don't need to.
helicopters. I don't
Fast
know.
and the
Important part.
Furious is actually
I saw the first
modern day soap opera. I
It is,
feel,
yeah.
but in like feature length film form, it
Right.
is
Which one
modern
is?
day soap. What?
What is?
Fast and the Furious is the modern day soap opera, but in feature length film like form.
I could live with that. I could buy that. That is definitely like what do we need? Sure.
But yeah, Lauren, I think it was Hunter, you mentioned the live action Alice in Wonderland.
Did I lose you guys? Sorry, hold on. I cut out for a second. I didn't hear anything you just said.
Okay.
Oh, I was saying that Hunter mentioned the live action Alice in Wonderland movie. And I was going to say there are some crazy costume choices made in that movie in particular, and also in the Willy Wonka movie that you had mentioned as well. Like, Lauren, what?
I just want to go on record. I just want to go on record that everything Tim Burton has done in the last 10 years is garbage and should immediately be trashed before he even gets greenlit.
I consider Edward Scissorhands one of the movies that should not ever be remade, but yes, and like,
Well, that's why I said the last 10 years of Tim Burton. Like,
He lost something.
Disney Tim Burton just like is the biggest sellout. But
Right.
Lauren, to that point, like when you look at the Princess Bride, you see that there are a lot of like historical accuracies in the costumes that they had made. I mean, of course, they also have, their own fantasy spin on things, but they're not these like really overdone costumes like you see in like, well, say Game of Thrones. I mean, I really like the costumes in Game of Thrones, but like to the point of the Alice in Wonderland and the Willy Wonkas, like what could you imagine them doing like in the hellscape nightmare that we made, like the Mecha ROUS's nightmare film that we are imagining?
I mean, they probably would try to go like super Game of Thrones with the costumes, which wouldn't make sense for like Westley or Inigo or any of those characters. It would really only make sense for Humperdinck and Buttercup because they would have like the actual like money in the context of their characters to like get those kinds of garments. So like if I were costume designing a new Princess Bride, like only the prince and maybe Count Rugen and Buttercup would get like really cool shit or like really detailed, expensive stuff because all the other characters shouldn't have that crazy stuff. You know what I mean? Like it would
stealing Buttercup
their character, but like they would, they would. But for Buttercup, I mean, we see the progression of her red dress that goes from like being pristine and perfect on her horse ride, and then she gets kidnapped, and then it gets torn, and she gets lit on fire, and she goes through the sand and all that other stuff. So her dress gets like more and more tattered throughout the story. So there's definitely some storytelling there in terms of the shit they've been through on getting through their adventure. But yeah, I do feel like they would probably go like too complicated with all of the stuff, and we would probably look at those costumes and we would see like Inigo in some like crazy custom like leather tunic with like embossing and like leather tooling work all over it. It's like, dude, he's poor. Like he's not a wealthy dude. No. He cannot afford this tunic unless I guess he killed somebody and like took it off their back. But then like
his character though, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was in the assassin kind of business. You know that Inigo has killed some people in his time. He is not an innocent. But I don't know. I would have to like delve into that if it were me with the new script and like kind of figuring out what those stories would be told. But I know that if it was just like some big budget Hollywood production company, they would just ruin it by like making it overly complicated.
Yeah.
When it shouldn't be.
I think that's one of the things that it sounds like we all kind of love about it is that it's almost the simplicity of it. It is like, again, going back to what Hunter has been saying, it's like, it's the story. Like we're stripping away all the bells and whistles. Like we have I mean, compared to modern day films, like there's no CGI. We've got simplistic sets. We've got simplistic characters, the costumes, but it's like, we love it and it fits the feel of the film because we're watching it for the movie. We're watching it for the story and the characters, not for the bells and whistles.
Okay, I just Googled that The Princess Bride in 1987 had a $16 million budget. That is still a that's higher than I thought it was, but it's still a fairly low budget movie in the grand scheme of like Hollywood movies. But what they did with that $16 million was very smart. They definitely used more of that in the story and in the script and in smart casting choices and less into, I mean, obviously there's like no CG. Is there any CG in Princess Bride? Is there any?
I can't imagine
any post editing stuff? I don't think so.
Well,
like all matte paintings and.
Well, I was gonna say, and I'm sure half that budget went to renting the pool where they filmed the ship scene. Like that was not a CGI. Like they were in a ship, and I mean, sure it was the pool in the Warner Brothers lot or whatever. You know, it's one of the biggest pools, but it's like, yeah.
I mean, this was all filmed in England, so it was in the.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I forget the name of the.
Pinewood.
It was Pinewood, right?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, they filmed all in Pinewood, but they also have. I'm sure they have one of those big pools for those kinds of shots.
Right. Well, I mean, they built the rock face. They built the scene where Inigo and Westley have their fight scene. The only thing that I can actually think of that maybe they did was the fire in the fire swamp. Maybe that was not CG, but what they used to do with like explosions, like they would composite, that in, like they would,
Well, you can even tell in the shot where Buttercup's skirt catches that the fire was actually like 2 feet in front of her skirt, but like it was all like camera tricks and stuff.
Yeah,
I feel like in Princess Bride, they definitely used as many like practical effects opportunities as they possibly could. I can't think of anything that's has any like real CG effects on it.
Right. No.
I mean, there's some really good prosthetic makeups. Obviously, Miracle Max and Valerie have like incredible makeup jobs. The ROUS suit is really, really cool, even though you can tell that it's a dude in a suit, but it's still really well done and it looks cool and it holds up. Yeah. Almost 40 years later now, we're pushing 40 years. So
that's the thing that we talked about the list earlier on of like things that we can't have remade, and it's that I can watch any of these movies right now and be happy.
Yep. Yeah.
And not be like I'm losing out. And to consider a world in which it's like, oh, we're redoing it not because of any opinion that we want to make about it or a different story angle we're going to tell about it. We just know that it's going to sell and we know that it's a known name. So yeah, send it, ship it.
I have an interesting question for the room on that same note, Hunter. Are there any movies that you guys can think of that are like maybe from the late 90s, early 2000s that's particularly nostalgic that has that bad CG? Like whenever we were in the, but can we think of any of those movies like fondly where it's like,
well, hold on. Like, still a good movie with bad CG, or like a bad movie that I love to watch?
No. Still a good movie, but you forgive it even to bad CG decisions.
The Fifth Element. That's the first one that comes to mind.
I don't think it's particularly bad.
Well, maybe, I mean, for its time, but if you were to watch it today, if you were to compare it to the things that we have today, it just, you look at it and you're like, we've come a long way.
I'm thinking like the Hobbit level bad CG, like unforgivable bad CG.
Got you. Okay.
I don't know how unforgivable it is, but like you look at the effect of the lightning in Highlander when the quickening comes and you're like, so we raised him up on a wire and we threw some sparks. And it's like, all right, could that not be something? But that's something that never compromised any of the film. Again, it was just an effect that could have been better.
Yeah, I just can't think of anything where like I still love the movie. Like I feel like bad CG ruins the movie for me. I guess the point I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
I got you.
Well, you got episode 1 for Star Wars, and you're just like, lots
of CGI.
Oh wow! but that is the bad CGI aside is not the thing that like absolutely tanks that movie either. There are so many other problems, but like that's one that I can think of that I'm just like, oh, I don't even watch that one anymore.
I went and rewatched the prequels recently, but I did it under the influence of substances.
You should
for a good reason, and they were more entertaining than I remembered, but only I think because I was inebriated. So like, I guess that was fun.
But you also go into it with the knowledge of what they are. You're not going into the theater like fresh and expecting something wonderful and then getting
You're seeing 4.6 and you're getting what you got.
The thing, like, I have a friend who loves the prequels and loves Star Wars, and like that blew my mind. But one thing that I would say for me is that seeing episode 1 felt like this could have been good if I didn't have expectations of what it should have been.
Right.
Yeah.
And I felt like the rug was pulled out from under me, and a couple different things were changed. But it was like, okay, I get it now. But then when we went from episode 1 to episode 2, and Anakin went from being a independent, like good-natured, smart, hardworking kid into you're just the top of the class and an asshole and super emotional and or a dick to everybody. It was like,
how did we get from point?
How did we get there? And that
Obi-Wan
turn was important to me. And whatever story exposition they did not give us a good enough reason to go, okay, we still like Anakin despite the bad shit that happened. Like we didn't see his fall from goodness.
Well, and this is something Genevieve and I have talked about a lot on the show is, and we've obviously got other episodes about the fact that like Star Wars is in this rut of constantly wanting to tell all these stories that take place in the same exact time period. Like it's all Skywalker era stories, which I feel like is the same kind of formula for rebooting stuff. It's like, we don't actually have any new ideas. We're just going to take what's worked before and redo it. Or we're going to take a universe that exists and keep telling stories within that exact same time period because it's worked before. Is it lazy storytelling? Is it, is it execs being like, this is where, is it money driving everything? I'm like, I know so many creatives with so many original story ideas, like writing scripts. I have a writer friend who's literally putting out a script a week. And I'm just like, it's not for lack of content. So why are we talking about rebooting The Princess Bride when I'm like, there's another storyteller out there that has the next Princess Bride if you just take a risk or a chance on them or something.
I agree. I think it is all money though. They want the producers want a guarantee on a return of their money. They're not willing to put any risk into the system anymore of a gamble of a story that may or may not take off. Like, even like you'll see like good movies that are original, but they won't do amazingly in the box offices. And then they'll just can it if it was planned for a sequel. But then like you'll find out 10 years later that movie was really popular once it like came out on like a streaming service and people actually got to watch it again. Like, so like some other like Fifth Element, I don't think did very well in the box office. Princess Bride didn't do good in the box office. It became a cult thing after the fact. And they don't, and I feel like the producers don't give the movies the chance to grow anymore.
Yeah.
It's got to make money on opening weekend or it's cut.
There's three things.
Office Space when it came out and it became a cult classic like 10 years later. And I was like, oh, okay.
There's the name talent. I need to guarantee that I'm going to have at least this many butts in the seat because this person is this much popular. Therefore, casting is centered around that. You have the formula based on if I do just this, then this, I'll get at least 15 to 25% off my return. And then just no one takes a chance anymore based on that. And the IP being another thing that I slapped that on that covers me, covers my back, my bottom line.
And you look at Princess Bride and again, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I think arguably the biggest names in that movie were Billy Crystal and Carol Kane because like they had gotten, Carol Kane obviously off of her SNL stuff and Billy Crystal was always a well-established, comedian at that time. Obviously Andre the Giant was well-known within his realm, but it's like Cary Elwes, Mandy Patinkin, Robin Wright, they had done stuff, but they weren't blockbuster stars. Your two big names were supporting characters that you don't even meet until halfway through the film. They're brilliant. I love their scenes. But I don't think you could get that made today without having name talent in those lead roles. And they took a risk on essentially unknowns.
They were elevating Mandy to definitely a much higher level, but they had faith in him. Cary was the kind of like, okay, we're doing a wild card action here.
Right.
But so they had a plan to a point, but it was just, again, still so much more, let's see what they got. And that's the same thing with Robin Wright. It's like, wow, she's fresh and young, but she's got something, so let's see it.
Yeah.
Not, we don't know her, therefore let's put Anne Hathaway in the role.
Co-star credits do you have? Like, how, things like that, which is what's controlling the industry now. Like, we don't care about
have you run a series? Have you done this? Therefore, could you possibly carry that? It's like,
also these days, a lot of casting is based on your social media presence, which is fucking bullshit. Like, not on talent. Like, you're gonna cast this person with more Instagram followers, even though this person is a million times more talented. Like, come the fuck on. I hate that. It makes me crazy.
This in another episode. It's all algorithms now. Production companies literally have computer algorithms figuring out who is the ideal person to headline this movie based on other things they've done, their social media following. Like, I've had these conversations with some people in production about this, and I'm just like, is this real? Like, this can't be real. You don't really have a computer program. They're like, oh, yes, we do. And I was like, fuck.
And it doesn't go just to the project, it goes to the industry. So like there are agents, managers, etc., who go, great, this TikTok star who has 3 million people, I can get them into acting classes.
Yep.
And I can have them doing auditions 3 times a week. So by experience and by training, then we'll get them there. And it's like,
SAG, our actors union, now covers influencers.
Right.
So they have been institutionalized within the Actors Guild.
That's nonsense. I hate that.
So I honestly think influencers need their own union.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is separate. That is separate. And they need to really hone in on children and influencers that are underaged, because that is a whole other thing that we could go on for hours about. However, to lump them in with actors, with people who that is their lifelong profession and their lifelong study is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And this is coming from somebody who makes the bulk of their money off of being an influencer. It makes me really upset because I do the acting thing and I do the influencing thing, but they never meet. They don't meet. They're completely separate things because they're completely separate jobs with completely separate sets of skill sets.
Right. And I'm convinced, like, I think 10 years from now because again, they're still doing this blindly. Like production companies are thinking that we are getting increased viewers because of their following. Like, I really feel like in 10 years, we're going to look back on the numbers and it's going to be like, no, there really wasn't, because you know what? This animated show made for 6-year-olds doesn't give 2 shits if XYZ YouTube star or even XYZ on-camera star is starring in this because we're 6 and we don't care. Because you really see this a lot in the voiceover world with influencers and on-camera actors. And it's like, again, what we've been saying since the beginning of this episode, story and character. That's why we're watching films.
Well, all the shows.
Did any of you guys catch the Quibi, the Princess Bride on Quibi thing that they did?
No.
Oh man, it was actually really fun. I'm hoping that maybe it's on YouTube now that Quibi is actually dead. But they did a thing where they got actors that were in Hollywood to film scenes from The Princess Bride at home. Nice. And they tried to do like shot for shot recreations, but it's all like really, like sometimes it's like animals instead of crowds and stuff. And oh my gosh, some of the moments were really, really fun. I'm trying to pull like some of the best moments, but Jack Black was in it. Dave Bautista, I think, was Fezzik for a minute. And like they got all these like big names to do different roles in different parts, and it was so much fun to watch. And it was like definitely a fan service. Like the actors that were doing these bit scenes were obviously very big fans of Princess Bride, and they were like doing it their own spin on things, and it was really fun. So if you guys have a chance to find it, if it is existing on the internet, it is really, really fun. It was very, very funny too, because like they got very creative with how they would do certain things. Like Chris Pine and his girlfriend, I don't know, did one of the Westley and Buttercup scenes. Oh my gosh. What's his name from Magic Castle? The actor who's on How I Met Your Mother, Neil Patrick Harris, his husband did Westley and Buttercup as they rolled down the As You Wish thing. So they were Westley and Buttercup. It was great. It was a really, really cute like fan thing during the pandemic, and I highly recommend you guys finding it.
You're like, I'm okay with that because it comes from a place of fandom,
Right.
and a place of love, whereas a remake comes from a place of capitalism and wanting to make money.
Yeah, this was all charity. This is like a big charity thing too.
Right.
So it, like,
that's so
all
cool.
for a good cause. It was very cute.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. On that note, we could obviously continue talking about this for hours because this is how passionate we are about this. Because we are obviously all creatives. We are all involved in the industry in some realm. We just love good stories and good characters, and we just want to see more of that. So I guess the moral of the story is don't fucking touch Princess Bride.
Don't you touch it.
Don't do it. On that note, guys, tell us where people can find you if you have anything to announce. But yeah, let us know where they can find you because you have been amazing guests, and I'm sure people want to follow all of the amazing things that you're doing. Lauren?
I am Lauren of Castle Corsetry. You can find me at Castle Corsetry across all social media platforms. And if you're interested in custom costumes, you can contact link on my website, castlecorsetry.com.
Yay.
Yeah. Hunter Smith. You can find me huntercsmith.com or all social medias at the Hunter C. Article the Hunter C. Yeah. Find me. Let's do some stuff. Watch Naruto on YouTube and then do whatever.
yes, you came out with that. It looks amazing.
So cool. Yeah.
2 more episodes coming out soonish. We'll get those.
It is fantastic. I really enjoyed it. So you can find us, the Rollout, here by subscribing, liking this video, and ring that bell so that you get notifications every time we upload. We upload a new video of the Rollout every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Again, we have a 30-day free trial from Audible. If you click the link in the description, and that will help us out a lot. As You Wish, the book written by Cary Elwes about the making of Princess Bride, is on Audible. Lauren just like sung its praises because I
will now be listening to it. Yeah.
To narrate their asides. It is great. So please check out Audible, get that 30-day free trial, link in the description, and please follow us and Culture Slate.
Yep. And also, if you haven't already, check out our reaction video to The Princess Bride.
Yes, check out that reaction video. It's
we're reliving ourselves. Anyways, all right. Thank you guys again so much for being here, Lauren and Hunter, and we will see you next week.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye.
As you wish, guys.
As you wish.
Have fun storming the castle.
Bye. They're gonna